Coming off the commercial success of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sega promptly got to work on a new spin-off title for the titular echidna. An ambitious project with 3 new characters, 6 new collectibles, and a return appearance from Mighty the Armadillo. All appearing on a transitional console as Sega tried to enter the 3D era. With fancy new characters, puzzle solving, locations, and twists, this was looking to be one hell of a game. Unfortunately, that's not what we got. Instead, a half-baked mess released to mixed reviews took its place. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. Far from it. In fact, I love knuckleschaotix, and if this video aims to do one thing, it's to instill a newfound appreciation for the game in others. Before we dive into this game, let's take a look at the box arts for it. There are 2 distinct versions, Japan's box art and America's box art.
New box art. What do you think?
Whoa, very nice.
It's a new game releasing for the 32X.
Looks very sweet.
Let's see Japan's box art. Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my god. It's even got Mighty on it.
Even the box arts can't make up their mind on the game. How do you expect fans not to be decisive when even the game's own fucking manuals can't make up their mind? But I digress. I really appreciate the cartoony nature of the US box art for this game. It reminds me of 90s cartoons and their promotional art. Everything looks so polished and rubbery. If they could have included other Chaotix members on the cover, maybe more people would have had an idea of what to expect. But the Japanese box art is definitely the best in my opinion. It looks a lot more refined and posh. Not that grandeur is something the gaming medium needs to achieve, it's definitely overselling it, but it adds a nice touch that I can't help but respect. Everything here looks so crispy, it's so fun to look at. Meanwhile the States cover, while definitely fun for me to look at, it's boring after a while. It's oversaturated. What is this? A Mr. Beast thumbnail? Whereas the Japanese box art has almost an acquired taste to it. It seems bland and uninteresting for a little while, but the longer you look at it, the more you want to. Just writing this script, I was itching to Google it once I finished writing this paragraph.
How's this, Goodwin?
It's beautiful.
This isn't a sculpture. A good sculpture takes more time.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a very special message. The game features a bright and colourful cast of characters, known as the Chaotix or Team Chaotix. This team includes Knuckles, Vector, Espio, Charmy, Mighty, and some dumb robot partners nobody really cares about. No offense to anyone who likes these guys, I just don't find them that enticing. I think the cast's colours mesh really well with each other, with no character looking out of place next to one another. Which makes sense because the game's central mechanic has you pair up with 2 of the selectable characters using these new bound rings. After that, it's up to you to use these characters to take down Eggman and Metal Sonic. Because Sega's early days just couldn't get enough of that guy. The game has 2 different stories depending on which manual you're reading. With the basic summaries, you have 2 furries leash each other around to defeat a fat man and his protogen. Actually, that's really funny, I should tell that to my friend. The Japanese narrative states that an ambiguous island ascended from the ocean after the events of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where Dr. Eggman found these bewildering rings dubbed the Chaos Rings. The rest of the cast arrived on the island separately, then got captured by the Doctor. Whereas the English version of the story tells you that the events unfold on this mysterious island, where the characters must team up in an effort to thwart Dr. Eggman and Metal Sonic from harnessing the power of these mystifying artifacts to satisfy their nefarious intentions. And while these 2 stories don't change the gameplay, and that a playthrough of the game is practically identical regardless of what version you're playing, it baffles me that there's such different tales. The only thing similar about the two is that the characters appear on an island and defeat Eggman. That's honestly the plot of most Sonic games anyway. Having such vastly different stories depending on where a game's being developed isn't a new thing for 80s to 90s era video games, but it's still so bizarre nonetheless. I just don't know why this has to happen. I get why it does, but shouldn't the people pitching the idea send the key points to the writers so they can still have the same story? It genuinely seems like they just send keywords to the two separate divisions. Knuckles, Vector, SBO, Charmy, Eggman, Chaos Rings, Island, oh and a Metal Sonic's there too. And apparently this just scratches the surface of this game's development. Like, did you know this game was originally going to be named Sonic Crackers? I know some of you did, but I sure as hell didn't. If you don't believe me, go look it up. I mean, seriously, what if they made that game? What would a potential sequel be called? Sonic Cheese? What would that be like? Thank God we've not had to find out. The core game mechanic has two characters bound together by the aforementioned bound rings. Where one goes, the other follows. Using the power of two, you can navigate much faster than you would otherwise, especially because they nerfed the spin dash to all hell. These new rings offer new methods of traversing the terrains, such as swinging one character onto a platform above you and having them pull you up with them using the ring's elastic properties. You can also charge up the momentum of the rings, launching you forwards at insane speeds. Personally, that never got old. And if your partner gets stuck somewhere, there's a button that calls them back to you. However, this costs 10 rings. What's even funnier is that if you use this when you're down to 0 rings, you enter negative rings, making that a literal feature in this game.
Oh, only Knuckleschaotix could come up with something like that.
Speaking of rings, much like how in previous Sonic games, collecting 50 rings would enter you into a special stage where you can obtain a Chaos Emerald, this game gives the chance to collect Chaos Rings. Don't ask me what those are, they're never mentioned again. And I doubt they ever will be thanks to Mid retconning this game out of existence. Don't worry, it'll always be canon in my heart. Unlike Sonic Zero's, a tasteless heap of hot garbage. Because unlike that game, this game actually properly introduces you to the final boss early on, instead of him just showing up at the end and transforming into a mangled demonic eldritch abomination that I can only imagine ruined any young children's chances of sleeping for weeks at the very least. You also have astonishing new power-ups, such as one that reverses which character is in the lead, one that swaps your partner for another character, one that upon death combines all your rings you'd lose into one Mega Ring, giving you the chance to get all your rings back, which is something every Sonic game needs, to be frank. And a never-before-seen power-up that enlarges your character, something that hasn't been in any game prior and any game afterwards. Nope, that's exclusive to Knuckleschaotix. And there's one that shrinks you too. That's hilarious. What's that, Knuckles? The spikes are too tall for you? Need Vector's help? There you go, you adorable red baby. It's also a fun level select system. Instead of you playing each level in a preset order, a level is picked arbitrarily. There are 5 different zones, each with 5 stages, with the 5th level of each zone ending in a boss fight. 5 stages per zone is undoubtedly excessive. I feel a much better approach would be to select from a bigger list of zones, with each stage gradually getting more difficult. Having the level select be randomized is definitely an interesting gimmick, but it should unquestionably be thought out more if they ever want us to see it. The game would unequivocally work without that feature had it been given more zones, but it's not the end of the world for me. How much joy I had with the game remedies this and then some. To play this game officially, you're going to need a Sega Genesis, the 32X add-on, and a cartridge of the game. Yeah, not everyone has that kind of money. Luckily, there's an alternative way to play it. I'm not going to encourage piracy for fear of what YouTuber Sega could do to my channel, but that is how I played the game. I don't want to risk explaining how, but if you are interested, you can just Google it. The base boss fights aren't particularly that fascinating, so I'll keep it brief. They mainly consist of you dodging simple attacks, as you can see from my clearly atrocious efforts of doing so. They're not all too memorable or too challenging. What is frustrating though is given the way the level system works, you can end up doing several boss fights consecutively, which happened to me on both of my playthroughs. What is intriguing is the final and second to last boss fight. The second to last boss fight is base Metal Sonic. He sits inside the level select, and you have to select the X to destroy his attacks, removing them from his arsenal. So each zone has its own unique attack. After he's been defeated, Eggman picks him up and transforms him into Metal Sonic Kai, a much cooler equivalent to the aforementioned final boss of Sonic Heroes. I despise that game. This boss fight now has 3 phases. First you must detach one of his arms, then you have to detach the other arm. Then you must hit him in the chest. With that final blow, you win. After he dies, the credits roll, which are different depending on whether or not you obtained all 6 Chaos Rings. If you did collect them, you see Sonic and Tails besides the Chaotix. If not, you watch as Metal Sonic Kai burns a city. Pretty dark for Sonic games of the time. Overall, I found this game very palatable. Beautiful aesthetics and color palette. I absolutely adore them. The colors are so bright, yet they don't strain my eyes. The game mechanics are also quite revolutionary, and that final boss fight was very enjoyable. I genuinely love this game with a huge passion. The music for this game is absolutely phenomenal. There is not a single track in this game I don't like that much. I avoided talking about the music because it honestly warrants its own video. However, I don't know that much about music, so don't expect me to make one. What you should expect is to hear songs from the game's soundtrack in many upcoming videos. As general background music, they work really well. Evening Star has to be one of my favorite tracks. The 90s are so alive in this glorious compressed 32-bit masterpiece. I definitely recommend playing this game. Just don't select heavy.